Hey, what's going on, everybody? Of course, today I want to give a quick video on Iran. So hopefully it'll be quick. Let's just get into it. Um, First and foremost, I feel like we get into a lot of shit in this nation when we don't look at history. And I've said it over and over again. It's like if we just look at incidents for this one quick snapshot of what's going on, then we miss a complete narrative and picture, right? And I think that that can be applied with anything, right? If we looked at the condition of black people without looking at slavery and Jim Crow and segregation and everything, one could look at data today and be like, hey, something is inherently wrong with black people, right? But it ignores the entire history, which is made up the majority of our thing and our presence in this country, where we've been like systemically and deliberately sabotaged to where some of our statistics like having wealth and education things are less than other populations. So you can't just look at statistics now looking at African Americans. You must look at it in a much larger context. And I feel like the West in particular, we do that. You know what I'm saying? Like we literally try to give a snapshot, which is why they're trying to get, black history out of textbooks, right? They're not teaching it because they would much rather us just look at the now. So then there would be no responsibility or culpability for anything. And then the solutions to some of the issues that we get will be different than what they should be, right? Because if we're not looking at the full picture, then how could we really grasp a solution that is best for all? And I think we need to apply this to Iran because, and I'm just going to speak for myself, is that when I was educated, when I was younger, and I went to some pretty good schools, I was basically indoctrinated with like Iran and the Middle East, they're evil, right? Plain and simple. You know what I'm saying? Like they just don't like America. They've always committed terrorism against us. They don't like the fact that women are free. They don't like the fact that we can practice different religion, and they want us to be in Sharia law. You know what I'm saying? Like, and in any fight in the Middle East, every single one was under those premises. So America was fighting on behalf of freedom and justice and liberation. And it's something that the people wanted. And these were evil dictators that were oppressing their people. Like that's what I was taught the entire time. And I was indoctrinated in it. And it like helped us, with, the Iran war crisis in the 70s and, the first Gulf War with Bush 1, the second Gulf War with Bush 2, all these things, even our position on Israel, I think it's like, predicated on this notion that like they hate everyone. They hate Jews, they hate Christians, they hate women, they hate freedom. And I feel like once you start looking at that and questioning that, like, is that really the case? Like that these people are always inherently evil. And if you look at it, it's like every enemy of any Western power somehow a enemy, a pedophile, a murderer, a genocide. Like there's never, it's always like a victimization, right? Like we have righteous indignation. God is on our side whenever we're entering a conflict. And I always offer like, hey, something might be wrong with that narrative. It's like one party is just always seen as like the Superman justice in the way of everything, and every other person they engage somehow has no moral platitude, has no leg to stand on. And I just invite you to go take an objective look at Iran's history. Take an objective look. They have literally no reason to hate America beyond America's messing with them, right? Because why is America even in the Middle East? And I think anyone can know it's oil. It's oil. Look at what happened in World War I when they broke up the Ottoman Empire. Look at what happened in World War II when they put Israel in the Middle East. And throughout that region. Look at what happened with the Shah of Iran. I don't know if y'all know, but back in the day, America actually supported Saddam Hussein in Iraq. Why? He was still this evil guy back then. I was like, but they were okay with it because it helped them achieve a means to an end, because they wanted to overthrow the government in Iran. They wanted to overthrow the government that was legally elected. And they wanted to install this guy called the Shah of Iran that the public did not want. And it resulted like in terror. Like you literally were infiltrating their government under the guise, of like justice and freedom, of course. I'm saying? Like when a lot of it had to do with money. And if you really want to call it, look at the reserve currency of the world. In the 70s, America was, the world was starting to move away from the dollar because it was moderately worthless because you couldn't pay the debts. It wasn't backed in gold. So the United States made deals with the Middle East and, of course, had these military things. This is why they had all these things in there to kind of place the dollar-based currency in oil. so it can allow our currency to accrue all this debt and debt and debt. Like technically, the economy shouldn't have that much debt, right? We have the most debt in the world, and why? You know what I'm saying? Like, but I can't even go further like into the monetary policy, but our policy, and then we have the global backed currency in the dollar, and that is a lot of the reasons why America will never get out of the Middle East, because our economy will literally fall if we have other nations that don't take America as the reserve currency, because it would destabilize us. That's why they killed Saddam Hussein. That's why they killed Gaddafi in Libya, because they were ironically two people that were trying to do that. But I digress. So we're in there. We have so much business in the Middle East because of the oil, and we've literally like sabotaged them. We've tried to have coups in their country. We've forged military efforts and tried to get other countries to attack them. We've done, bombings. We've done sanctions and raids and everything to try and destabilize this area to make it sure that like our business interests can go in. And of course, on top of that, Israel was kind of placed in the Holy Land of like all like three major religions of the world, and like they were given nukes. You know what I'm saying? I was like, so imagine if like you had a country next door that that kind of displaced your neighbors, like hundreds of thousands of them, and put a lot of them on your borders, and then you gave them the best military in the world, and basically were fighting against a lot of the things that the Arab nations were going in. So I'm not saying that like I support it, but I'm saying like it's not they're evil and they hate us and they don't like women and freedom. And if you ask any Iranian person, they'll be just like, we just want America to get out. Like, we're not trying to convert, Americans to Islam. We're not trying to go over there and take over. Like, we just want you guys out. And we feel like a lot of the measures that are being taken are like counterproductive to Iran. And again, I'm not trying to convince anyone in terms of like how they should believe, but I just think that you should at least do some research on what that other side is saying. There are two sides to every equation. And if in every social, political, geopolitical issue that one side seems to put themselves on the right side of history every single time, and even remind you, this is the same people that, committed the slave trade. These are the same people that committed Manifest Destiny and killed all the Native Americans. These are the same people that like literally have exploiting relationships all over the globe with things like the World Bank. They're like keeping nations in poverty right now. These are the same people that like rewrote history books, right? Like these same people, you know what I'm saying? I was like, are now again saying that they're just on the right side of history, just like they did last time. So if it were me just judging on the past, I might go ahead and look at the other side of the equation as well, just so you can form your own opinion instead of just like saying, okay, well, I'm on this team and, they're my enemy no matter what. I think it's actually making us more in danger, right? Not knowing the facts of the situation and presuming that these people hate. And I just have to bring it back to slavery again. It's like, a lot of white people that were owning slaves were really scared of like the slave revolt, right? They were scared that like the black people were going to get together and kill the white people that had been brutalizing them for hundreds of years, bypassing the whole notion like, hey, it's the notion of slavery, right? It's the fact that you're kidnapping people, making them subhuman, making up false science and saying that they're not humans, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, and deleting history and saying that nothing amazing ever came out of Africa when you're lying and all, like, it's so deep, but not looking at all the cruelty and all the things that you've done, but just minimizing and saying like, hey, they could attack us. And so let's do all the brutality things and say all the anger that the slaves have. Like, they actually invented a mental condition for slaves that wanted to run away. Like there was a mental condition for a slave that wanted freedom, right? You know what I'm saying? So like that's the depth of like how this other side will kind of manipulate facts and history and everything just to make themselves have a moral and righteous indignation to achieve the ends that they want to, no matter how brutal and how unfair. So I just ask you to do some research and just see what the other side of the coin is saying and see if it makes sense to you. And I think it'll affect the resolution. Because no, I don't believe that nations should have nuclear weapons. I don't believe Iran should have that. I think every nation should not have nuclear weapons, right? And how do you incentivize a country to say like, hey, you can't have them, but we can? What kind of negotiation is that? You say like, and do you think that would have happened if Iran would have had a nuclear weapon? Would America or Israel have attacked them like that? No, because they would have been scared to say like, hey, if we attack you, you could attack us. So like we're basically just advocating for bully status. And is that something that we really want? If we're for like no nukes, everyone should not have nukes. But you're scared that they're gonna bully you with nukes just like we're bullying them. Like that's like the thing, like that's literally what it is. You don't want them to have a power to be like, hey, don't do this shit to us because we can now have the ultimate threat just like you have to us. Is that fair? I just want us to think about how much that's putting us in danger and how our quality of life is on the backs of the exploitation of so many people. So, food for thought for today, a little different perspective on Iran. And until next time.